Cool.
Right on.
So, Aaron, I know who you are, but in some ways I don't know who you are because we kind of haven't been able to talk for a while. So, who are you now? And tell us about yourself and your grow and all that stuff.
Right on. And it's really good to see you, man. For those that it's the first time they've seen us together, this is not the first time that we've been together. We used to do this going back many years. Matt is an old friend, and I value our conversations because he's probably one of the smartest people I know. So I'm Aaron the grower. I run ATG Acres here in Oklahoma. I cut my teeth in California for 10 years. I did outdoor, I did indoor. Before that, I grew in Florida. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've been organic for 11 or 12 years. That means like natural inputs, which is one of the ways you and I got connected because you're really good with the biological pest control. And when I started doing that, you and I were able to collaborate in so many ways that we just started doing these videos. So it's cool to bring it back to that. And that's who I am. That's what I do. And I have some really big grasshopper issues this year with my outdoor garden. And I wanted to address those for anybody else in like the Midwest that's having the same problem.
And what would you say like has been your experience? Because I already kind of introed a bit as you saw, so we were talking a little bit about grasshoppers and that kind of a thing. What has been that experience for you? Let's see if I can add some footage here.
Devastating.
That's
When we first, yeah. And so just a little backstory. I've created my own seed line from a hemp variety crossed with a THC variety. It's hemp that we found in a ditch here by my house, 10 minutes from my house. So we crossed those two things. We saw a lot of grasshopper resistance in the field where we, pheno hunted and scouted this hemp, and I selected for it. So these plants have been selected for pest resistance, especially grasshopper. And then I popped these seeds in my vegetable garden, and it was sort of like at first it was just a few, and I thought there wasn't much damage, but then I took a look at some of these stalks, and they were almost chewing the entire vascular, system of that external layer all the way apart, getting in deep. And so branches were starting to fall, but like they weren't totally dead. They would have this weird kind of light green damage. And then, and I
Is it like they were
asked,
girdling it? Would you say they were like kind of girdling the branches, or it seemed like they were connected, but like would they like chew like 75% of the way through and then kind of stop?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, they would move down from there. So, or up. So like, yeah, they would get like 75% of the way through. And so that would weaken that. And it was always that supportive portion of tissue that they chew. So the branch would always fall down. So you see this like sloping, branches come down like
It
that.
would go like here, and it would kind of go like that,
Yeah,
and so they might go from here to here, from here to here,
yeah.
but ultimately creates the branch to do that. That's interesting because I don't know necessarily what that might have to do if it's just a behavioral thing. Sometimes insects do that to like um, they don't stay in one place, so they don't get eaten or something like that. That's usually a pretty big selection pressure. But another thing I know for some insects that feed on sap, the assimilation loading zones for plants when it comes to sugars is a big thing. So you might see insects congregate near the end of the petiole or the beginning of the petiole where the leaflets come from for cannabis, for example, or similarly where branches move into the stem, right? That
Hmm.
section, that's where everything has to load up so it can get through the vasculature, like you said. I wonder if there's something there to that.
And they do. And, so in your pen example, so if this is the branch and it's sloped over, they've chewed all of this. They've actually also tend to chew, so like down the main stalk as well. So like
Mhm.
they'll completely debilitate that whole
Like
um,
side.
tensile strength. Yeah. That thing that's actually like preventing it from falling, they destroy it. And we saw devastating damage on even like our zinnia, my wife's zinnias and stuff. So we were having like lots of problems. I asked my neighbors. My neighbors run like a small amateur commercial farm with like dairy and eggs and obviously like squash and cucumber and tomato and all kinds of stuff. And I said, "What do you guys do for grasshoppers?" And they said, "Chickens." And that's what we'll get into today. I want to talk a lot about chickens because I got some chickens for the grasshoppers. I won't I don't want to spoil it yet, but it's really cool. So we'll talk about some of the less effective strategies that I've tried, and between presenting the outline and you and I kind of bouncing it, I actually talked to my mom. She's 900 feet away down on my property, and she's had grasshopper issues, and she said I've got a strategy. And so she actually revealed something to me that it has been pretty effective that I didn't put in our outline that I'd like to share with our viewers today.
Well, that's fortunate because unless I'm just not competent in the ways of the new Instagram, I haven't found a way to share the videos and pictures that Aaron took for us. So, assuming that I can't do that, and I'm pretty sure that I can't. If you want to help me out in chat, or if you want to find something, that's fine. But I don't want to, miss the seamlessness of this transition. Um, I will upload this to YouTube and I'll put in the videos and photos. So
Perfect.
just reference things and people, if you want to see that, you can find that on YouTube and on my channel Zenthanol. So
Yeah,
you can check that out there. But
Matt
I'm
tried it.
curious. Yeah,
Matt and I tried it before the chat, and it did have an option, but now it
showed it.
doesn't. So
Yeah, it's really funny. Like I don't know if maybe I didn't select the right kind of live stream. Perhaps maybe
oh,
that's it. Who
Instagram.
knows? Yeah. Well, there's like a 1080p and like a 4K resolution, I guess, for a certain camera. So
I
I
see.
wonder if maybe like the function is only possible in one of those, or it's a bug. Who knows?
Yeah,
But regardless of that, I do have my notebook, so I will be able to teach from this.
perfect.
Fortunately enough, yeah. Oh, but the words are backwards as always, and there's no way for me to change that. I don't think.
We're
So
gonna learn to read
I,
backwards today as well. That's first
yeah.
lesson.
Well, that's why when we would upload these, and you can find other, hey, and if you like this guy and you like what we're talking about, on my YouTube channel, we have several ATG Acres conversations about various things. We talk about like trichomes, we talk about, again, various plants, how they develop. We get into the evolution of them. We talk about eyesight in insects and spiders and all kinds of other stuff. So it gets into the weeds, but in a fun way that's not too overly like prosaic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We try to bring it to the masses. So
But
it's always fun, and I think we have fun, which you'll sense like when you watch the videos. Like we like to banter about this stuff, and we both have just a plethora of experience, and it's yeah. Let's get right into it. So I wanted to talk about three things today.
mhm.
This is for our outdoor farmers. I wanted to talk about grasshoppers primarily. I wanted to talk about deer, and I want to talk about rodents. Now I'm an indoor farmer too, so bear with us, indoor farmers. But this is going to be pretty. We'll talk about some indoor stuff too, but it's going to be mostly outdoor. And with the grasshoppers, what a unique pest! I know in past years I could have zero damage on my outdoor garden, and other years I can have just an unbelievable amount of damage. And it seems like the more plants, the more damage. Um, so what's with that? Grasshoppers have like a swarm thing that they do every few years or something like that, or when the season's right and the temperature's right. Let's start with that a little bit. I think that's a really cool point.
Yeah, so I'll start off by saying that the order of insects, for those who aren't familiar, uh, insects all descend from a common ancestor, or what we call insects at least. So that would be things like there's two main groups. There's groups that develop like they have like a larva, a cocoon or chrysalis, and then an adult. Think like moths, beetles, wasps, flies, that kind of thing. And the rest of them are like cockroaches and mantises and termites are like this, where they start off like a little nymph, and it looks like the adult, but like basically no wings. And as it just basically kind of gets bigger and it molts and molts and molts, and then you have an adult form, usually terminating with some wings, like with grasshoppers. They're fully functional, I should say, at the end. So that's the group we're dealing with. It's been around a long time. Um, the group is called Orthoptera, which means straight wing. And unlike other insects that have wings that they can bend or flex or even have folds in the joints, these insects are one of the like earliest and oldest groups of insects. And that's why I brought it up here, because they're able to be so effective because they've got a lot of, or I guess you could say they retain still traits that were like very basal to a lot of insects. For example, they have chewing mouth parts. Probably not surprising. That's like the first kind, right? And then other mouth parts in insects derive from them. So, but they kept them around. So they're kind of like an OG insect when it comes to that. And they're also able to eat on basically everything. Most people know this about grasshoppers and locusts, but obviously that's pretty important. They've got microbes in their gut that help them do that. They've got various enzymes and things that break down, uh, plant toxins, and they'll neutralize them before they even become a problem. Um, but some microbes are a problem for them, and we'll talk about that. You've got two different groups. We're not really going to talk about crickets much, which are the Incifera, but the Califera, where are the hoppers. They've been around for about 100 million years, and they kind of coincide um, with like the development of grasslands. So grasses, as we think of them, they didn't exist like forever. They're actually more recent than things like trees and that kind of stuff. So like the first grasses were like bamboos, which kind of makes sense, right? They're woody, they're rigid, they're hard, and they can grow really well. And so the grasses we think of as like grasses, like they make crops from and that kind of thing, those are way more derived. And so grasshoppers, as our name shows, they really kind of developed with them. And the main ones that we deal with in America, in the USA, and actually Latin America too, or South America, I should say, are the acrididae, like acrid, meaning like bitter or not great. I don't know if it's because they're able to eat everything that they call it that, or it's because the people who have to deal with them are like, we really don't like these. I don't know where the naming comes from, but
Both work, both perfectly
both work, right?
apply. Yeah.
They're like there's like over 6,000 species. There's a few that we deal with, and they're mostly known in English as bird grasshoppers or Schistosera. So you've got like the migrating locusts that people deal with, and we've got the desert locusts as well, and the American grasshopper, so to speak. And those, the final fact I'll say about this is that the very first one, the desert locust, is like the most basal in that group, that genus, and we know and we've even observed that they came all the way from Africa. They literally flew from Africa to South America, like around the time of now, basically, when the continents were so far away.
That was my next question. Is this during Pangea? Because that doesn't count.
Yeah, no, it doesn't count, right? And for a long time, people thought grasshoppers originated elsewhere or that certain groups because of where we found them.
Mhm.
But when we do genetic sequencing, we find that like no, actually, and apparently, like in like I want to say like I think it was like 19 or maybe 1885 or something. It was literally observed these grasshoppers moving that distance,
Wow.
which is just really super crazy, marking them and that kind of a thing. So don't underestimate them is kind of my point. Like when you hear all that context, a little bit long, but when you hear all that context, you might appreciate what it is that we're dealing with here. Something that arose around the time that grasses arose and basically have learned to eat everything in sight, and even grow great distances. So to do so.
And they do something incredibly remarkable. We'll go over some of the less interesting facts here in a second, but I found something cool in my research. I'm going to read it straight from the research. In February of 2020, researchers from Washington's University in St. Louis announced that they had engineered cyborg grasshoppers capable of accurately detecting explosives. In
Yeah.
the project, funded by the U.S. Naval Research, Office of U.S. Naval Research, researchers fitted grasshoppers with lightweight sensor backpacks that recorded and transmitted the electrical activity of their antennal lobes to the computer. According to the researchers, the grasshoppers were able to detect the location of the highest concentration of explosives. The researchers also tested the effect of combining sensorial information from several grasshoppers on detection accuracy. The neural activity from 7 grasshoppers yielded an average detection rate of 80% accuracy, whereas a single grasshopper yielded 60% rate. These are remarkable insects. I don't think there's another insect on Earth that's doing that.
There are other insects doing that. We've
There
actually
are?
recruited
Get the fuck
we've
out.
we've recruited other insects to do this. Primarily hornets and bees because we know
Okay.
that they're for the same reason their antennae, right? So their antennae are like their noses for people who don't know, and other structures can be too.
Oh,
For example, butterflies can taste with their feet, or certain ones can, or they can taste certain things. So these antennae basically are like these it's like as if instead of like we have like the odor receptors in in our noses, imagine that that was like taken out and it's just basically a long rod that you stick into the air, and then air passes through it and you've got all kinds of molecules that might or might not bind with it, and it tells the grasshopper, oh, okay, there's the thing that I want is over this way. And other insects do this too. And we can use this for like bombs and things and explosives because, or at least those that have an odor, or they might, there's like odorant particles that can come off of like things like
okay.
Semtex and kind of stuff.
I, I,
But
I was
I've
hoping it
already said
was
enough
like,
danger words that we'll get this video probably canceled or whatever.
oh
But
yeah,
so,
yeah. Well, I was hoping it was like EMF somehow, some sort of EMF detection, but that's not the case.
oh
Okay.
yeah, no, it's a lock and key chemistry, but it's
Okay.
it's pretty good, and you have to be really good at that. That's a huge selection pressure, right? And so who knows if they were smelling them all the way from Africa, South America? But I think that it's more like it's a little bit more local than that. But they
Yeah.
do have to have the ability to sense a very small, minute amount, and that's what makes them possible because these things don't make that much scent. That's what we use dogs too, but dogs they don't even hold a candle to insects with regards to that.
Very cool. Oh, I'm glad that you set that straight. That's really interesting. Um, and there are some other interesting facts about grasshoppers, which you kind of touched on. You said butterflies can taste through their feet, but grasshoppers hear through their uh, tympanal organ, which is the first segment of their abdomen. Can you explain this?
Yeah, so um, basically, it's not like so insects generally, and a lot of arthropods, they don't have an organ for like hearing, at least like the way that we do. And so a tympanal organ, if I'm correct, if I'm remembering correctly, is that's actually kind of like saying like an ear or an ear-like structure, something that
Hmm.
hears. But
Okay.
it's not like morphologically related to ours. We mammals and other animals developed hearing in a different way. But like for
Some sort of
example,
vibration detection? Is that what it is?
it is well, it's like sound. It's like a vibration in the air. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of insects will detect vibrations. Um, Kind of like that they feel. So like a tremor sense kind of a thing. So
Okay.
like if they're on like branches or whatever, like leafhoppers are like this. Um, uh, cicadas are like this. Crickets, they're all kind of part. They're in like a similar group that developed. But if I'm remembering right, I think this like ear organ, this hearing organ, developed independently in different groups, which is actually more amazing than if it developed
That
first in
is.
one basal group and then retained with all of these, because it implies, if I'm remembering right, because if that's true, that would imply that it was super important for various ones, and that they probably had, you know, when we talk about like evolutionary biology and physiology, like why does something develop a certain way, and people just say selection pressure, but there's more to it. Like obviously the structures themselves have to have. There's usually something that's already there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's not super novel, and then those small some of their parts kind of like move together or develop in weird ways, sometimes counterintuitive ways that end up being helpful. Another example would be like saliva becoming venom in various things, even non-insect animals. So I'm not sure exactly what structures in the body, but it's interesting, right? Because in the abdomen, it's not by their head, right? Where we might imagine that would be important. It's possible that maybe it comes from, and this is totally speculation. I could probably look it up, but to keep things going, I imagine that the ability to like interpret vibrations probably precedes it and might have been important for um,
Yeah.
this hearing organ, maybe an opening developing or a thinning of the membrane for other reasons, and then
Hmm.
that gets exaptated, as they call it, into another thing. It's like an animal developing a horn for killing things, and then uses that horn then to like I don't know, break the tree and then drink sap, right? So a horn that was
Hmm.
used for defense then gets used as a tool. Um, and hey, oh, here's our exaptations. Here's our
Yeah.
fingers that help us do things like type on a computer or or handle a tennis racket.
Even
So
though they
or
were
throw a
meant for
ball.
holding a stick and poking it into an anthill or something, we're able to
Exactly.
type on a computer. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Exactly. Neat stuff to consider. Anyways.
So, moving on from there, they have two different sets of eyes. They do different things.
Right.
Can you explain those a little bit?
So most people know that insects have compound eyes, and a lot, but not all insects also have what we call primitive eyes called ocelli. And we have a big video, me and him talking about this on my YouTube channel, Zenthanol. So if you're interested in this stuff, it's very fascinating and also lets you understand and maybe exploit some physiological strengths and weaknesses. So the ocelli are usually three sort of like dots, kind of usually structured in the middle of the eyes, or it might be on the top of the head, depending on how the head is developed and that kind of thing. And what they do, why they've been retained, is that they have way less visual acuity. The compound eyes are like looking through a bunch of small pixels on a screen, basically. It's more complicated than that, but basically, light goes through their eye. It filters through uh, basically like a prism, essentially, and then it hits a protein and it tells it, oh, this is like this color or this color. And it has sensitivity to wavelengths like the cones in our eyes do. The ocelli basically only see light and dark, but they also see polarized light, which is related to light coming from the sun vertically. So it's associated with verticality. And so for insects that fly, like honeybees and hornets and dragonflies and other things, that's very important. So the compound eyes they might use to be sensitive to the colors and shapes in their environment. And they don't often go too far. Honestly, probably like a 450 or like 360p like video camera that people were using like in the early 2000s probably has more visual acuity than just about all insects or most insects, um, based on what we know about the reactions. But these ocelli let them say, oh, I should be moving in this direction if I want to go up, or I should maintain my angle, my attitude, like in a jet fighter,
I see.
based on
Okay.
the ocelli. Yeah, so they're important for that kind of a thing. But water and other things will refract that. So that's why you might see insects take a dive into a pool and you think that seems kind of stupid. But that's why, because the refracted polarized light, they go, oh, maybe that's up, and it's not.
Wow. Very interesting because we've got, every day we've got a new grasshopper or two in the cow trough. So it's, I'm like, you idiot, but I guess it's not their fault.
Partly, partly. I mean, not all of them get that way, so maybe they have to get a little bit, hungry or
Yeah.
dehydrated or old, who knows? But yeah, I mean, I bring this up because, I will wax on garrulously about all kinds of details. People go, why does this matter? Which is a great question, actually. So bringing it back, you might be able to use water traps or maybe a UV trap or something like that to help yourself out. But there's a double-edged sword with UV traps, right, Aaron?
UV, yeah, they're experimenting with UV, and UVC you can't expose to people,
Oh, sure.
but it can.
But even if you just attract them, then you're attracting them to your area. So like it's like, do you
Yeah,
always want do you want to
that's
do that necessarily?
that's the problem. That's it goes hand in hand with banker plants. It's like
Yeah.
there's some benefits and there's some cons. It just depends on if it fits your grow style and if it's something you want to try. But yeah, I the in terms of effective treatments, um, uh, it's it's really slim out there. Um, like there are a lot of options. Like if you go and Google, how do I deal with my grasshoppers, you'll get like plenty of options. You'll find threads and feeds and stuff with different information. But the fact is, it depends on the level of infestation. If you have a few grasshoppers, quite frankly, that's benign. It's not really gonna, you don't really have to worry about it. But once those few grasshoppers get comfortable, it gets hot, the conditions get really, really right, they can swarm, and they can grow in incredible numbers very quickly and take over your garden, and within, you know, just a few days you can have just the utmost damage. So we're going to talk about like mostly organic stuff. You know, I'm not going to talk about seven dust. You know, I know that's a
Right.
really popular option, and it's what all the farmers around here use, the non-organic farmers, but it's not something that we're willing to work with, or even address today. But I will address some things that I've tried, some things that I want to get Matt's opinion on. The first is the grasshopper nematode. This was totally new to me. Obviously, I've heard of nematodes. They do wonderful work, especially in more aqueous solutions. But this one is a foliage dweller. And that was really surprising to me. But obviously, they would have to be if they're going to impact the grasshopper population. They really need to be both in the soil
Are they a
and
foliage
in the foliage.
dweller, or can you just apply them to foliage?
They
You
so
know?
lay eggs in the foliage. Um,
Oh, okay,
the,
interesting.
that's
Yeah, that's I don't even think I'm familiar. So yeah, tell me more.
So they've been shown to be effective under the right environmental conditions. So nematodes are really sensitive. They're like the most sensitive biological and most expensive biological pest control thing that you can come across, that I've kind of played with. And but these are really big. I was kind of freaked out by them, and I don't think I would use them, because it's just it seems sort of novel. But people online say that they've had success with them, and they're even listed as a control option on you know, on a lot of websites. But that's all I know.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, as you say, if you ingest something that's you know, that's going to kill you, like I mean, sometimes if you've ever had the unfortunate encounter by getting like fresh fish, and then seeing like some worms wriggling around, and you think to yourself, you know, oh, what's with this? Fish that eat other fish will, you know, they get parasites. Like that's kind of what happens
So,
in nature.
totally.
And so the point is to cook that animal, or flash freeze, or do whatever you can so that you don't have that problem. But you know, people who eat fish should know that like that's a real thing that happens, and it's part of nature. I'm not saying that it'd be difficult to get rid of it. So in the foliage, of course, similar kind of thing. It sounds like happening. You're eating the leaves, and somehow you don't mash and masticate the nematode itself. Um,
Okay.
I do.
I've got an update.
I am familiar with nematodes that get into the because locusts will, or grasshoppers in general, they deposit their eggs in the soil.
Right.
So that would be where ground-based nematodes to be able to um, colonize them
Be
and kill
effective.
them
Yeah.
rapidly. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yes.
also microbes, I think, for that are the same way. You can apply them in the soil, but then some people apply them onto the foliage.
We're gonna yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about that one, which is a really interesting one, which was the gold standard, but it's no longer available. But I did find some more information on the grasshopper nematode. Um, uh, they are parasitic worms that infect. Oh no, these are a different. No, I'm sorry. These are parasitic worms. These are different, but it's part of the same. Yeah, I guess I gave you all the information I
Nematoda,
had. I mean, it's
nematoda. I mean, those are worms. Those are parasitic worms for sure.
Spinochordotes tellini and Paragordius tricuspidatus, parasitic worms that infect grasshopper, alter the behavior of their hosts. When the worms are sufficiently developed, the grasshopper is persuaded to leap into a nearby body of water where it drowns, which is
Yeah.
very interesting. I wonder if that's happening.
That sounds like are those not horsehair worms?
You know,
Because those,
doesn't say.
yeah, yeah. Have you seen those videos? I'm sure you have with those
Oh my gosh, with the praying mantis,
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
where they pull the put them in a
yeah.
glass of
Because
water.
that's how it works, right? Is they yeah, because they need to reproduce in the water, so they alter the isn't that fascinating? They're able
It's
to
so
like
fascinating.
take control
These
of yeah.
these nematodes reminded me of that, which I kind of like was hoping we could make a parallel to. So I'm really glad you brought that up because it seems like they're very similar in the way that they infect the grasshopper. They lay eggs in the foliage, the grasshopper consumes it, and then they give birth inside the grasshopper and wreak havoc.
I mean I feel like
But
that's the only way. I remember people might be hearing like nematodes in the foliage. It sounds so weird. Never heard of this. Like, are you guys on something? You know, but I remember people. I don't know how common this is really, and I haven't done this myself, but I remember talking to some people more than 8 years ago. We were dealing with thrips, and they were talking about how in some places they will apply like the nematodes that you would apply on the substrate to like kill the thrips as they hit into the soil. That you could apply them onto the foliage, but you know,
I've
obviously that's a hostile.
absolutely
It's a hostile environment,
environment
yeah, especially
exactly.
outdoor. I think this was
That's the problem with the nematode. I've heard that strategy. I've heard people
yeah,
just spraying nematode solution onto their foliage, and they're okay with re-inoculating every 2 days because
yeah.
they
You just have to
understand
apply
that
the
it's a
bunch.
harsh.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I guess you're not inoculating because it's not actually
No,
you're just
no. I would say that's the right term. I would say that's the right
okay.
term because you're getting into the foliage. They got to get onto the thrips. You're kind of
Yeah,
hoping. I think that you're kind of hoping that you even get some of the nematodes like on the body, you know, with like the liquid solution, and it like bears them down, and the nematode can get into it. But um, kind of like it's an oddball kind of approach. I think this is also in the
yes,
context of like a greenhouse or a shelter, a more sheltered structure where maybe they'll stay viable for longer. But yeah, like for people in desperate situations, like there are examples of that kind of a use case for people who haven't heard of
yep,
this. And but what you're talking about is something that actually lays their eggs on the foliage so that like in nature that makes a lot of sense because a lot of things are more defended in their egg structure. They can overwinter in the egg structure or whatever. So, and also I was also consider as I said earlier, I was like, huh, like the grasshoppers don't like chew them apart with their ripping, tearing mandibles, but as eggs, they're just flotsam in the digestive tract.
shoot, I lost you. Broke up there for a second. As eggs, I lost you.
Oh yeah, as eggs, they're just kind of like flotsam in the digestive tract, and they just kind of,
Mm.
move through with the bits of branch and leaf that they're eating, and then they can develop over there. So it makes a lot more sense as like a natural organism that would have this kind of adaptation. So yeah, all kinds of weird things. Viruses also, for those who don't know, there's all kinds of like viruses and microbes that sprinkle on onto your soil and onto your leaves from the wind. So that's a thought to have.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk about Beauveria bassiana. I've I'm sort of like the only I feel like I'm the only organic farmer that doesn't really use Beauveria bassiana. I've had bad experiences with it. It ran off my Aureus insidiosus, my minute pirate bug, for whatever reason.
No, that
Um,
makes sense. Can we talk about that? A small interjection.
yeah,
Soft-bodied
absolutely.
insects do get hit by Beauveria, and also um, so it makes sense also for the minute pirate bugs because for those who don't know, minute pirate bugs are predators, yes, but they're in the same group as like aphids and whiteflies that are really susceptible. So those are the Hemiptera, and then specifically they're just like a they come from sap-feeding insects that developed a taste for blood. In fact, they're actually in the same group as bed bugs,
Dude, and
uh,
they
and
bite.
they
I was
do
working
bite.
under a 10 foot tall bush, and I'd take a leaf, and one or two of them would fall on me, and it would get pissed off and bite me, and it hurts. It's not. pleasant,
I've actually
but
never
it's
had the
not.
problem myself. Maybe I've been bitten and I don't have a sensitivity or something, but I've actually
Could be.
never experienced it. But I've heard many people, and this gets kind of existential because people ask me about this. I'm like, well, it's never happened to me, but I know many people who have had this
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
And
I,
so
I know a guy
there's,
who doesn't feel mosquito bites. I
okay,
have a
yeah.
neighbor who doesn't feel mosquito
So
bites.
it
There
does
you go.
happen. Um, and I
um,
also hear that specifically that they that they kind of itches and burns like for some people like quite a bit. So you can tell when it
yeah,
happens.
it stings and then it itches for a couple of minutes and then it kind of tends to go away. Of course, it depends on your reaction level.
Yeah.
But all this to say, my new pirate bug, good. Grasshopper, bad. Beauveria bassiana, somewhere in between. You know, it can be an effective treatment under the right conditions. The problem with it is it really only works for indoor pests. You know, grasshoppers don't tend to be a problem indoors. Um, but the infection is usually not lethal from Beauveria bassiana because basking in the sun actually has the result of raising the insect's temperature above that of the threshold tolerated by the fungus.
Mm, interesting.
So you might not have good luck. I have seen it work. I mean, I've seen grasshoppers affected by Beauveria bassiana early in spring. And that's really when it's effective, is when it's applied early, cooler temperatures, or later in the fall, when numbers are crazy anyway. It's pretty much impossible. If you haven't treated grasshoppers by the time the fall hits and they're swarming, you have no chance.
Well,
Unless
and I think
you get
it's
chickens.
important. It's important also to say that for a lot of insects, when they become an adult, um, and depends species to species, clade to clade, but generally they're more, or maybe even if as a larva, like a caterpillar, like a budworm, like that's very small, it's going to be way more susceptible to like microbial things like BT and stuff than when they're like a later stage that is much more robust. And that totally tracks, it makes sense with insects. And also, Beauveria bassiana, although we often know it as like this like great super pathogen of so many insects, um, it's from this. It's usually found in the soil in nature. It's a soil-borne organism, and it can also be an endophyte in plants too. But that's kind of like where the cordyceps family, which Beauveria is a part of, is from generally. And so um, I guess I bring it up because it makes a lot more sense. I could see how Beauveria could kill like the nymphs and the eggs that are in the soil, right? Because that can be very dangerous. So applying it maybe where you might suspect that the grasshoppers have laid their eggs um, could be a more
A good
effective
soil
use of
drench.
Beauveria. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But it's
yeah,
also expensive.
yeah, and it's not gonna.
So
It's very expensive. But you know, I know a lot of growers who find it very effective for smaller pests indoors as part of their biological program. So I don't want to throw shade on Bavaria.
no,
I think
but
it's
you
a
got
good
another use
product.
case. You got another use case.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
super valid, and I'm a big evangelist of Beauveria, but it's very important. You could kill beneficials if you're not careful, like you just said, and um, you have to be responsible and know the best way to apply it for your context.
yeah, exactly. Um, so there's another strategy that's kind of interesting that surprised me, and I've seen this, but I didn't connect the dots until I started doing the research for this discussion. That shade can actually deter grasshoppers quite well because they prefer sunny spaces. Of course, this isn't feasible for your average outdoor grower because we need all the sun we can get. But you know, you throw up a shade cloth for a couple of weeks. That might be an effective strategy to kind of deter them. Or with another strategy, you know, you throw up a shade cloth with, you know, some spray or some neem oil, crushed red pepper, or whatever your choice is there.
If you expect you're going to get like if we just take some number as 100% of them, maybe you're going to get hundreds in or thousands in the span of your, and maybe year to year it changes too. But like let's say whatever that number is, like maybe the shade cloth takes out 5% or disrupts them to that degree, and then you add in, like you said, like some other various other layers of that defense, and then it keeps cutting and cutting and cutting, and so it reduces that amount. Actually, shade makes sense. Another thing that I think is really slept on, primarily because we don't have a lot of research and information on it, not because people are ignorant, or I mean, not without trying to know more, but I think, like we said about the eyes, finding a way to exploit their ability to detect the plants is like, I think, really important, and I think might be what perhaps outdoor growers will find is like the most low cost solution in the future. And maybe the ways to do that is a little bit, arcane now, but maybe something like, different colors. I know there's research that shows for other insects like aphids and whiteflies, they get up into the air, and at that point, they don't really fly very much. They're mostly like trying to glide in the jet stream, but they will try to get out of it when they see like the right wavelengths of green that they're trying to look for. So, in a similar way, I wonder if we could disrupt that. Sometimes people have applied like large amounts of like color, like things that are colored green but aren't plants, and so they go and they dive onto that instead of your plants. Sometimes if you give no how do I put this? Like if it's just green space and there's no other colors coming back up, or if it's UV, which again, or they look at as being like that shouldn't be coming from the ground. That can totally play havoc with their visual system, introduce a bunch of noise that they're not expecting to
Hmm.
see, and change up their ability to see you. And then if you bring that, if in addition to that you disrupt their ability to sense the plants, maybe you diffuse a bunch of other plants in the area, maybe you use pheromones, maybe use other stuff, that could also maybe really strongly negatively affect them. This is all speculative though. I know that there's people doing research on this kind of a thing, but like if we're able to really figure that out, I think that for outdoor growers, that might be the most essential thing. And turns
Hmm.
a vulnerability of environmental exposure into maybe not so much of a vulnerability at all.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I think it's Aikido that says like take the opponent's offense and turn it into
Yeah,
your
yeah. The
defense or something.
momentum, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the momentum. That's what it is. Yeah, yeah, and it's absolutely true. I mean, you've got to examine it from a perspective of bottom up. So like, what's the least impactful, you know, low cost option, which is what we went through. You know, we went through a couple of months trying to figure that out, and what we've talked about so far, those weren't the options. You know, shade didn't work. Beauveria bassiana didn't work. You know, we have plants in the shade in there. They get destroyed by the grasshoppers. Always have. Um, so the nematodes, you know, that's kind of outside of my realm, but neem oil. Neem oil, you know, it's something that it seems to come up a lot. And I know a lot of people, you know, a lot of the stuff we talk about, Matt, can be controversial. But you and I try and take a strictly scientific perspective. You know, no opinions here. Um, I think that neem oil can be very minutely effective against the grasshoppers. I've seen them run away from it when I spray, which you might think is a good thing, but what's actually happening is they're ducking and dodging that insecticide and they're not getting sprayed. And so large, you know, once a grasshopper is out of its nymph stage, it's just poof, it's gone. It comes back when it dries. So this is just another one of those things you might be able to sliver 5% off, you know, with some other strategies. This is one of those. Neem oil can be pretty effective. Just make sure that your spray schedule is really tight. So every 2 or 3 days you have to spray, and between sprays you've got to spray water to clear the stomata. It's really easy to clog leaf stomata with botanical oils or any kind of oil.
Yeah, I'm going to be really honest with you. It's an unsatisfying answer sometimes from people, but they'll ask, you know, what's the simple solution for this thing? And I'm like, you probably would have heard of it
Yeah,
already. If there
yeah,
was like it was like really easy and anyone could do it and it like results in 100%, So like I mean sometimes people just don't know. But
yeah.
like it's like this is where I would say like yeah, you do have to do a little bit of work, like pay attention to the behavior. And especially we've talked about crop scouting many times, how important it is. Just knowing, kind of having a good idea of like, obviously you might know, yeah, I have grasshoppers, and yeah, I know they're everywhere. What does that tell me? Well, it really helps to know, like when they start. when they kind of stop, and also like if you feel like year to year as you grow in your local space, if it's the same space or essentially the same space, then you can get this really important historical data. Maybe collaborate with your comrades growing with you right next door, especially in Oklahoma. I'm sure you have a lot of people who are also growing and dealing with the same problem. And as a community, you guys can band together with that information because, as we've known from like stories, biblical stories and others, like you get a lot of locusts sometimes, and then sometimes you don't. And
Yeah.
that kind of sort of capriciousness is like it can really mess up people because imagine you move to a new location like a bunch of people did to Oklahoma. Maybe the first year you go there you don't really get grasshoppers, and so you're like whatever, and then maybe you've heard about them, and maybe you're also in an area where they just don't get them as much or they haven't for a while. That's also possible, and then suddenly one year like the swarm gets really big as they're wont to do, and then they will blanket the area, and suddenly you have no defense because you decided to be the lazy grasshopper in the Aesop
Yep.
fable, and not the
Yep.
hardworking
Yeah.
ant.
Oh, well put. And that's so true because it's so easy to walk your head right into the bar on this one because we've had, like I said, we had multiple years. We've been here for 3 years. We had 2 years where all we did for grasshoppers was neem oil, Beauveria, random other, suff oil or whatever I had on hand. And it worked. It just kind of worked. But it didn't this year. And before we get into what really worked effectively, I want to talk about quickly what I spoke to my mom about. She's fighting grasshoppers with her vegetable garden. It's harder to fight it in a vegetable garden, in my opinion. Maybe that's just because I'm a cannabis farmer. But in a vegetable garden, you've got different components to consider, not just this one plant. You've got like
Way more
squash, you've got
complicated. I
cucumbers.
agree with
Yeah,
you.
it's
Yeah.
so. I said, she's struggling. What am I going to do? So she starts putting nets over the plants. The first nets she put down were like fabric from the Dollar General or whatever, and it was really weak, and the grasshoppers chewed through the fabric.
Wow.
So she put more fabric on, and she started spraying. She started boiling garlic and crushed red pepper. So she would do 2 heads of garlic crushed, and in her words, a shit ton of crushed red pepper, and then put it on boil. It's a gallon of water, so put it on boil, let it simmer for an hour, and then you've got this like really effective homemade spray. Now, for your average outdoor commercial farmer, that's not super feasible because you need consistent inputs. You can't just
But
like make it this way
formulation.
one week and make it another.
Yeah.
So
But
that's
but
effective.
it's interesting though, and like it's a thing. It's one of those low tech solutions that I heartily support. Right, like if you can use it, if it's a viable option for you, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And that one works. I think that'd be a great option for home growers. Netting is probably one of the most effective defenses for grasshoppers. We should definitely talk about that. It's really low cost. It's easy to put up, but if you've got some serious grasshoppers, just make sure you've got the right material because they'll chew through that. They're absolute savages.
Yeah.
So there was this gold standard treatment on the market a couple of years ago. It was called Nosema locustae. Probably mispronouncing that. The Latin do be like that. But it was the most effective thing on that we've ever discovered. It was only made by 2 manufacturers. One of them burnt down, and the other one was bought out and is no longer producing this. This is sketchy, to say the least. But I won't get into conspiracy here. I don't want to demonetize anything. But there's,
Okay.
like, why are they trying to prevent us from treating our grasshoppers effectively and organically? I don't know. But
Who
or
is
was it just a
they?
coincidence?
That's the question, right? Who is
Ah,
they?
good
I
question.
wonder
This
if
is
it's
why we.
really it could be something as banal as I want to like corner a market they might not even be aware of like the damage and destruction being wrought from
That's
that decision. But it
that's
might be something like, haha, now I have this, and I want to like make my own product. Or who knows? But it's been a while
raise
though,
the
so
value. Yeah,
I would have thought that they would have actualized something if that were the case, though, right?
it's it's I think you're right. I think it probably is just a market strategy, but we'll see how it plays out.
But
But
we'll
that
see how
one
it goes.
is,
Yeah.
I think that one is the best low impact strategy. But before, without further ado, I'd like to talk about chickens, ducks, and guinea,
Okay. Yeah.
because those are the most sustainable, holistic, and effective treatment that we've run into. Um, and like I said, I asked my neighbors how they treat the grasshoppers. They said they've actually got chickens, guineas, all kinds of birds, and they said they don't have any grasshoppers. So I spent 4 days. I went to Tractor Supply, went and dug through the trash in the back, the dumpster. I pulled out 10 pallets. I built in 4 or 5 days. I built a chicken coop. I coated and put some tin on it. Bought full-grown hens for $30 a pop. We've got 7 of them. And the minute I put them in the garden, they started eating. Within an hour, each one had eaten at least 100 grasshoppers. There were so many grasshoppers, and they just went crazy. And I wish I would have taken a video, because now our local grasshopper population there is 5% of what it was. Like, we have 10 to 20 a day there, but anything that goes within 4 feet of the ground is chicken territory. They jump up,
What?
snatch it up, and devour it. They fight over it. It's their favorite food.
So like that's like they're like anyone who played Pokemon as a kid knows flying beats bug type, right? And it's been the case for most of life. Insects used to be a lot bigger until dinosaurs, right, learned how to be insects basically.
Yep.
And so they were able to fly better, and being huge was a liability. And so with other constraining factors, insects and other things, uh, most of them became quite a bit smaller. So they learned their place in animal
Yeah.
kingdom. And I feel like I feel like there's this that's what we just saw here is like the capitulation and culmination of hundreds of millions of years of evolution.
Yep.
And that's what birds are. They're looking for those bugs. That's what they want. And this would be the place where I would have shown you guys one of Aaron's really great videos he sent, which is of him,
On
and
YouTube.
on YouTube you'll be able to see it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'll put it in here and post. He shakes the tree, the cannabis plant, and the grasshoppers, which you can't, be honest, I can't really see it very well. There's a little bit of quality with the video there, but you can totally see some masses fall off, and the chickens go right after it, and they eat them so quickly you can barely not even see them. So it's very illustrative in a quick and dirty
I've
sort of
got a
way.
high I've got a high quality video on the Instagram. It's part of like a reel
Okay,
on one of my
cool.
posts. It's at the
I'm gonna
beginning.
send that then.
Um, Little yellow grasshopper, and yeah, so anytime there's a grasshopper in the tree, I shake it. They disperse, and about half the time they jump down into the chicken
The
territory.
ground. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Um,
That's awesome. So
but there is
95% reduction. How many grasshoppers do you think you were
oh yeah,
getting? I want to quantify that for people a little bit.
dude, I would say we had well over 500 grasshoppers a day. Maybe 1,000, probably closer to 1,000.
Yeah.
There's no way
Wow.
to
A
get rid of them.
thousand like a day. You said 1,000 a day.
A day is it's going to be my best guess. I could
Yeah,
say
yeah.
I
So
could
like
give you per
hundreds.
hour,
Hundreds.
but
I know, but like
hundreds.
hundreds a day. That's
Yeah.
incredible. But also not surprising. It's locusts. And so people
There
were
and
talking
so
about in the
this is
chat. Yeah, this is all you need. Okay, this is all
this
you
is
need
all
for
you need.
IPM. All right, I learned it from these guys. Okay, I learned it from
Yep.
these guys.
Yep.
So if that's what if you don't know how to be the very best, then I don't know if I can help you. Uh,
Catch them all.
but
Catch
yeah,
all those grasshoppers. So I want to talk about vegetable farmers briefly,
yes,
because vegetable farmers are going to have a harder time with chickens. Chickens love vegetables. So there's two things you can do. You can sort of prune your plants to make sure that no fruits are growing in their vicinity, but keep in mind they're jumpers. And then the other thing you can do is watch them. And anytime, don't feed them any leftovers from your tomatoes, or like never give them the, the leftover squash or anything that grows in your garden. And then anytime they go after it, you swat them down. But, this is, chickens can be a feasible option for vegetable farmers if they're free range. So if it's not a contained area and they're free to roam, they'll prefer other food sources. They may not go after your vegetables so much. But grasshoppers are large herbivores, so their size alone makes them like one of the hardest things to deal with. But the chickens are like, they're velociraptors. They tear them apart. They grab them from both ends and shred them, and then shred them into thirds, and it's so much fun to watch. We leave the chickens in the outdoor garden like all hours of the day. I wake up at 7, I go out there, I let them into the garden. At 9 o'clock, I go and close the coop because they're back in. We get 5 eggs a day from 7 chickens, kind of a added benefit. And then we can use the hemp leaves as bedding in the chicken coop. I just wanted to give everybody those little tidbits. If you're looking to get chickens for grasshoppers, there are some really cool benefits there. So it's really cheap, but it's expensive to build.
You said that but you said you'd also had used ducks and guinea fowl. Is that right?
So the neighbors use guinea. I've used ducks in the past. In California, we've used ducks, but we didn't have bad grasshopper problems. But we would just let the ducks roam the area. The chickens would actually, that I had before in California, those chickens would eat little plants too. The ones I have now aren't eating any of my little plants. But the guineas are actually considered the gold standard for grasshopper and tick eating. Like, they are slightly better. But they're loud and annoying and small, and they fly, and my neighbor's guineas get in my yard all the time, and like, they're great, but it's kind of annoying. And then ducks, duck eggs. A little bit more
wild in that way, right?
Yeah, totally. Duck eggs, they smell fishy. They taste delicious. They have a high nutritional content, but they're just a little smelly. It's actually that aqueous like protection, because ducks lay eggs in the water, and so they have like this that imparts this flavor. Yeah, it's a film, and it imparts a flavor on the egg, and it's not a flavor actually. It tastes fine. It's just a smell. When you're putting it to your mouth, you're like, oh, this smells nasty, but it tastes fine. One of those.
I'm working with somebody who they're going to be buying some property up or down in like near like the Salton Sea area, or by like close to the ends of Borrego Desert, and they're wanting to get some chickens, but they're also going to have a like they have to have like a defense animal. They're going to get like a big goose, perhaps, or perhaps a tom turkey. That's going to be really nasty. So I wonder. So for those people who have that kind of pressure for like mountain lions or wolves, or wolves or coyotes and things like that,
bobcats, yeah.
So there are options for that too. Do you find you have to worry about that at all?
Yeah, we think about it. I have 2 farm dogs, like that are outside all hours of the day. They come in the barn at night. And so they do a good job of protecting the chickens. But one of them got after the chickens when I first got them, so we've got to watch them. We considered getting a rooster for protection, but they can be aggressive with children, and I put my kids in the coop and in the garden and stuff with the chickens. But geese are really aggressive. Yeah. I wouldn't mess with those things. They're mean, especially males. And then, but turkey toms, I mean, I wouldn't see any problem with that. They're super chill, right? And they're really tasty.
They are. Well, I mean, you can have, maybe you can give them a friend, get some turkey eggs, and, you can start in January or whatever, and then it grows up, and then you have Thanksgiving, and then you can start it again in
like that.
December. Yeah,
It is. It's it's a special consideration. You have to protect your flock, and whatever any male bird you put in there will put itself between the flock and the predator, um, of the ones we've discussed. But we haven't had any bobcat attacks.
that's
We've
great.
got a lot in the area, so I think it's so far so good. Um, so I wanted to ask you a question about eating grasshoppers. I've never tried it. I'm kind of curious. I'm not going to go pick one up and eat it, but unless you tell me to. But have you ever tried it? And what's your take?
Chapulines. I think I have had grasshopper. I think that they, like a lot of insects. Like I lived in China for a little bit, and you could go to like hutongs in Beijing, where they have like when I went, they had like silkworms and scorpions and things, and they in a very cruel sort of way, they like pierce them with skewers and then uh, you know, present them in a way that like people could see them, writhing, so they didn't even kill them when they did that necessarily. So it's like a shock thing, and I think people have, and like things like fear factor and other stuff have of course like kind of galvanized ourselves against the eating of insects and things like that. But to be honest, like a lot of insects, they might have their own flavor. It's kind of, in my opinion, it was kind of nutty in the way that it was prepared, but they really taste like whatever you season them with.
Hmm.
Um, and and I feel like you really, in my opinion, I don't have like a lot of experience, but I did have an interview with somebody who is an advocate for insects as a food source, not like replacing anyone's like food. It's not like the Matrix in your food
No
tubes or whatever. And
conspiracy
you know,
theories here, but yeah,
mean, yeah, people have been, to
yeah,
me,
yeah.
I think it's like me personally, I understand the concern because you see some things in government, it makes you scratch your head, but um, it's like I think that's actually an incredibly insulting interpretation, primarily because there's all kinds of people who eat insects, and so
Oh yeah.
I feel like that's a little
I
bit
think it was a
disparaging.
primary primary part of our diet evolutionarily. I mean,
Yeah,
and
I
quite
mean,
frankly, if shit hit the fan, I'd be out here chewing on grasshoppers
yeah,
day one.
eat your
But
pest, eat your problem.
yeah,
Humans have been, I will say this, one of the first livestock we ever had, or that we have evidence of, is snails. They don't move very
hmm,
fast. You can kind of keep them penned up.
dude,
So,
how funny.
yeah.
Do you know the culture? What was the culture that kept snails?
I think I at least can think of one off the top of my head, which I believe was a like a Neolithic maybe group. I want to say it was in like the like what is now the Mediterranean, like around where like France and Spain is. And I think that I
Okay.
think there were also Native American groups that were doing the same. And certainly coastal people could eat like clams and other mollusks and things too, and that kind of thing. So, but we know this because there's evidence of a bunch of like snail shells and things found in some places. So
Very
uh, those were
cool.
like the deposits. Yeah, cool stuff. So I feel like
That's
you
wild.
could eat them. You could probably fry them up if you're down to do that. I don't. I'm actually struggling to remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure I also didn't really eat the thorax and like the head
Hmm.
area. I kind of treated it like a crayfish, where like I would eat like
Ah, the
all of the like
tail.
the soft, yeah, like the soft abdomen and the legs, which just kind of crunched if you fried it well, and then that was kind of it. No need to like go super ham. At least for me. If you have had a different experience, let me know. But yeah, I
Very
think
interesting.
that's not necessarily a bad idea. I've also had leafcutter ants, which also just taste like whatever you season them with. So,
Very cool. We have ants here that when you crush them, they smell like oranges. I
oh,
doubt
okay,
they taste that way.
yeah,
Some sort
yeah,
of
yeah.
defense
I,
mechanism.
I've heard they can be kind of bitter, certain ones. So you really gotta like. That's why they do like chocolate covered or whatever. And most of them are so small,
Yeah.
you got to get like those big woodcutter ants or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's quickly go over some other, unless before we move on from grasshoppers, is there anything else you wanted to cover on grasshoppers?
Let's see. Yeah, I guess I didn't really talk about too much, but just as a follow up. like they do this swarming, and the swarming is not every time, and it's very much it's a density dependent phenotype. What 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 grasshoppers have done really well, and I think that they've probably this is conserved the genes related to this like response to like basically lots of their own selves being near each other versus being isolated is an adaptation that they've had. I think is very primitive and basal, but it makes sense because if you're an organism that needs to reproduce and normally you live an isolated life, you need some sort of way to commiserate. And part of that is based on environmental factors like photoperiod, like with plants, and pheromone as well. Also, like touching each other, like there's so many of them that they're like bumping up and rubbing up against each other. That seems to be a really huge aspect of it. So I bring all this up together to say that all of these conditions don't all come together always in the same way and in the same regions. So you can get like, one person will say, "Oh, I didn't really have them bad this year," and another person, several miles away might be in a little relict area, hidden away, and for whatever reason they pass them over a little bit more. So it can be very hard. It's hard to ascribe necessarily. Sometimes you're just lucky or unlucky when it comes to where the wind blows and where the bow breaks. Apparently, in your case.
Yeah, and it seems like it's so environmentally dependent for swarm activity to happen, and I think there's like levels of it, so you can kind of like get a little bit of it localized, or you can have like massive swaths of swarm. But we have seen it here this year already, and I if I'm correct, I believe that they call them locusts when they're swarming. I don't know if that's semantics or if that's
It's a
etymology
little,
or.
it's a little semantics, but yeah, generally like I would say that, and especially earlier, maybe nowadays people are a little bit more lax. But yeah, locust is kind of like a swarm. Like, well, people used to think they were different, like so we didn't always have the ability to know that. But like yeah, locusts kind of associated with like that swarming phenotype, whereas grasshoppers don't typically swarm so much. And but
Mhm.
like with all common names, it can get a little bit there's a little bit of a Venn diagram there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, Very interesting stuff. I wanted to touch on a couple other things for any outdoor growers that are interested. Um, Deer being a quick topic, they can be really devastating. They can consume a large plant overnight,
Yeah.
at least the foliage portion of it. I've seen it myself. We tried everything. We tried sprays. We tried ultrasonic repellents. The ultrasonic is great
Did you
until it
find that
stops
works?
working.
I've
And
I've often heard people call it like a bit of a fraud or a scam, but I'm curious to hear your experience.
well, we didn't have any deer damage while it was working,
There,
but then
there you go.
but but then it we didn't know that it stopped working because you can't hear it, and there's this little
Oh,
dim little
yeah,
green light
yeah.
on it, and you're like, I think that's on. I don't know. I don't even look at it. So then
Oh, sure.
deer's returned.
I see.
Um,
I see.
but foliar sprays, there are sprays that are effective against deer. They can limit their chewing and deter them, but
Did the
probably
hot
don't.
pepper juice work?
I don't know. I didn't try. I've never tried the sprays. Um,
Might be a little hot for their tongues.
it probably would. Yeah, I would imagine even if you sprayed that near the plants, that would deter them. But man, I think they can eat the foliage. They might not be susceptible to capsaicin. I don't know. I don't know. That's a
Way
good
to find
question,
out.
though. Yeah.
Get some
Um,
corn and put some hot chili
I'm
oil
gonna
on it for
mace.
that.
I'm gonna mace a deer
That's
and
the
see what happens. I'm
appropriate
just kidding.
response. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But forget about hunting in the area if you've sprayed any sort of deer repellent. So if you're an outdoor grower and you happen to like hunting, that's not really a feasible option once you've repelled the deer.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
most,
That's good to know.
yeah, the most effective option is fencing for deer. So 6 foot
Yeah,
with a 2 foot extension, barbed wire, or it could be a foot, but it's got to be facing outward, or an 8 foot fence. I mean, deer can jump amazingly high distances, but if I've seen a deer jump an 8 foot fence to get out of a garden, never get to get into a garden. So a deer came, we left the gate open. A deer came in while we were gone and came back in, and it jumped the 8 foot fence, but it never jumped into it.
interesting.
So they're crazy. They can jump like crazy, but that's an effective way to get rid of them is the fencing. Thought I'd share that with viewers.
Well, and I think like it's interesting because when I think of like we were talking about how insect netting is really great for so many insects and mice, but of course like not necessarily and usually not practicable when you have like large scale and outdoor. Um, Otherwise, that's called a greenhouse. You know what I mean? It's like a different context entirely. You know, so
Well
so
said. Yeah.
but it's interesting because like I feel like there's this I've had this experience many times professionally, and I know I'm pretty sure you have too, and I know other people probably have as well, where it's like um people ask, what should I do to prevent X or to do about X? And somebody says, well, what if you do this thing that everyone does that might be expensive or might take some time or whatever? And then they think, huh, that's expensive, laborious, whatever. What if we just didn't do that? And it's like sometimes the pest in your region dictates that. Like you will, you will adapt to the speed of pest or you will lose to the speed of the pest.
Die
And
by the speed of yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like if you have this deer, like let's say you have no other bug problems or no other kinds of issues for whatever reason, but like just the deer, but then the deer come in and they lay waste, or the locusts or the grasshoppers come in, same thing. So it's kind of like it's very unfortunate, but sometimes like one pest that maybe you don't even get every year, but like you can get really bad, like budworms, for example. Maybe one year you get none. But then one, Croptober, and you get tons of them. And then on top of that, you get botrytis maybe too. And then,
Oh
it's just
yeah.
this huge issue. So like, it's kind of like, it's sort of sad and unfortunate, but you have to like do something for that pest, even if you don't know it's going to happen, but you know that if and when it does return, it's going to be a huge issue. And maybe that's the only viable thing for your region or for what you have resources to accomplish with. So that's why farmers are so um, reliable and handy and
Mm-hmm.
creative because it requires you to know a lot about like the natural sciences and like your area and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like you have to know the weather and the climate, and you got to know like soil chemistry, and you got to know
Mm-hmm.
all these other things, biology and ecology, um, and then like little structural design and some engineering, basically.
Yeah.
Like you did with that chicken coop. So what do you think about
Fucking
that?
nailed
I
it,
kind of went
dude.
over the
You,
place,
you,
but you
you
know what I mean?
nailed it.
Like,
No,
yeah,
you nailed it. I think that's spot on. It's you never really know what you're gonna walk into, so you might as well build like a well insulated vehicle. I don't know.
right.
It's kind of like driving into an area you don't know what you're going to encounter. You got to have the snow chains. You better have something to get through the water. You got to have something to I don't know
What if
what
your
else you
engine
would have.
breaks down?
Yeah,
Like,
you need
wouldn't that
gas.
suck? Yeah.
Yeah, hey, you need everything. You can't just. So that's the point of this. Hopefully this discussion allows people to kind of grasp on to some things that are going to work instead of just flailing in the grasshopper sun and not really getting anything effective done. Um, Mice is another problem. Rodents and mice.
Yeah.
I encountered them a lot outdoors in California, and I tried everything. We tried different mouse traps, bucket traps, traditional mouse traps. We did mint. I actually watched or not. I found a quarter of an Irish Spring bar chewed and eaten by a large rat. So mint doesn't always work. It works on smaller, mice, but large rats, forget about it. They're going to chew that shit like it's breakfast.
It's like a
But
deterrent.
the one,
Like if it's hungry enough, it's like I'm just gonna eat this, you know,
yeah,
like
I don't care if it hurts my tummy. Like I'm still gonna eat it. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Mice and rats and rodents and general, voles and shrews and moles and that kind of thing too. Like California has a lot of those, especially in the like riparian chaparral that I live in, where if all the urban stuff was thrown out, you could see that it was basically like a shrubby, sort of arid. Used to be a lot more oak trees, and there's like riverways that have dried up, basically, and they come back when it rains. But like that sort of location where you know on the hills and the mountains, like you get all kinds of
hmm
stuff. And I'll see houses where like if you're near like the canyons and the valleys, then you get all these like animals and rabbits as well,
hmm
cottontails and that kind of thing. And then you go to another place, like you go up north into like if people are familiar with like the I'm blanking on it, but like Rancho Bernardo, where like there's a lot more open valleys and things and like big trees and stuff, and you get a little bit more wildlife like coyotes and things. You have to
totally.
contend with that. You have to contend with that, and you can't really do anything about it. Like I said in my example earlier, I had a Pestapalooza. These people were asking about earwigs, and it's like
Hmm.
I asked them about their setup, and it was basically they have all these like garden rocks, and of course, like all of those underneath the rocks are like it's where the moisture is. So if they don't re-landscape or something, they're always going to constantly have snails, slugs, earwigs coming in, and
Yep.
it's a deeply unsatisfying answer to be told, well, you're kind of stuck with the problem because of the way the environment is.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. So same thing with shrews and voles and mice sometimes. Your neighbor maybe is not very clean, maybe, or maybe keeps a
Yep.
lot of trash or whatever, and or even they're really good and only a little bit gets out and that's enough to sustain a population.
Absolutely. And that's the thing with rodents is they're not devastating until they get comfortable. You might have one
Yeah.
visit and you might see a little scritch scratch on the stalk, and I've ignored that. And then I've let them get comfortable, and they can chew a circle around your stalk in 3 days.
Yeah.
With a and when you're preventative, when you know that you're going to deal with these things, you can absolutely prevent it. So the best way to do that is to get yourself copper or steel mesh, some sort of wire mesh. They call it hardware fabric, or it can be steel wool. Those are two different products that can both be used, and they can be wrapped around. I would cut about an 8 or a 10 inch piece, wrap it around the base of the stalk, make sure all those branches are removed. That will prevent chewing and climbing from rodents. Best option we found. And when possible, I try not to kill the pest. I mean, I would rather just deter it. And I don't know. Everybody's
You
got
get
to
like a
answer to
rotting
somebody eventually.
mouse body or something that now you have to deal with. So I feel like logistically
Yeah,
it's simpler, right? You
the
know,
the bucket trap can be
yeah. I've
just
used the
savage,
bucket trap.
dude.
I've used the bucket
Me
trap.
too.
It works.
Me
It
too.
works really
It
well. It
works
works really
works
well.
very well. And I don't know, you can make it dry and relocate if you check often. You can put water in it, take some 5 to 15 minutes to drown, or you can put oil in it, and it's really fast. But it all is so gruesome and
Yeah. It doesn't
dark.
feel good to use it.
No,
Yeah, it is.
no.
Um, yeah, I feel like I'm in like the most dangerous game or whatever, and like
Yeah,
is man,
yeah,
right? That's the
totally.
best. It's like yeah, I agree. It's a gruesome prospect. I came across a company called Andermatt. They're from I believe they're a Swiss company, Swedish. I forget now off the top of my head, but
Hmm.
they had uh a mouse trap and a rat trap that was really nice. You can reset it. You could the rodents can come on the right side or the left side, and You didn't have to see anything. Like if it
Hmm.
worked, there's like a little red mark that like comes up and tells you, hey, you should look at this, and then you can just like depress it, and you can just shake the animal out, and again, kind of gruesome. It was really nice and effective because you could reuse it a lot. It wasn't super expensive and that kind of a thing. So if you only get a few, maybe you could do something like that. But again, it's like you you do have to do something. Like the one thing you don't want to do is
Yeah.
go and say like it's like when you like of course when you get a good feel for it, like you said, like you had you get a little bit of scritch marks and no real damage because you don't get comfortable, you don't have like a colony nearby, that's fine. But yeah, I think that people with insects too, they're like, oh, it's whatever, it's gonna be fine, or I won't have a problem because I'm a good grower, and it just doesn't happen to good growers like me. And I think that's not the right attitude to take. Yeah,
Oh man, there's no such thing as a good grower.
yeah, only an adequate grower.
Yeah, we're all adequate, and then bad things happen, and that
Yeah,
crystallizes our understanding. But bad things happen next year too. So, you know, am I ever finished learning? Am I ever finished developing my strategies? No. But as I learn them, I want to share them with the world. I think um, grasshoppers are assholes, and that's all I have.
yeah. Um, yeah, I feel like we really touched a lot of good topics. This could be titled something like, Aaron's ATG Acres, uh, Oklahoma Experience or something
Yeah,
like that, or like rural experience. Because we did talk about the deer and the mice, but those
I
grasshoppers
appreciate
are a huge pain.
I
Yeah,
appreciate you giving me the platform to do this. I really wanted to. Your audience will find the most value. This is bug stuff. I've had major problems this year. It's been absolutely devastating. So thank you for giving me the platform to do this with you. And we're definitely gonna have to do this again really soon. And
yeah,
I want to hear from people what their grasshopper experiences are like
mhm,
after this. I want people to send me messages, tell me what you're doing to fight them, and also tell me about your chickens. I saw some comments in the chat about chickens, and I wanted to say sorry, Alley Propagator, that the coyotes got your rooster and the chickens. Oh, that's sad. R.I.P. Um, so tell me more about all that stuff, people, and help me learn so I can keep educating you guys and getting educated from Matt. So that's all I got. Thank you.
you're very welcome. And yeah, I think people get incredible value from uh, just hearing people's personal experiences. And yeah, I usually focus on like fungi and bacteria and microbes and insects and mites, and not as much on the mammalian pests, but like, they do exist, and it would really be unfortunate to have this gaping vulnerability in a place where, um, well, they're around a lot more, right? And you might have a more austere condition, or you might not be able to get access to the resources that you would normally have in isolation, essentially. So I like to have that experience validated, have people talk about it, and I look forward to our mutual success. We'll do more of these. And yeah, similarly, please tell me when I upload this onto YouTube, when I post this on Instagram. Um, what has been your experiences with grasshoppers and deer and rodents and things too? What has worked for
Yep.
you? How bad has it gotten? I'm very curious to know that kind of a thing. And where you're located is always really helpful to know. You don't have to be doxing yourself, but general locations are helpful to know. And I think together as a community, we can band together with that information and help each other. So,
Awesome. And let me just shout out Lone Star, Adam the Grower, Smoking 19s, Alley Propagator, Bear Mount. Hey, ATG, I appreciate the shirt, dude. You're the man.
yeah.
Love it. I got to send you a red, white, and blue one, dude. I got new ones. They're tie-dye red, white, and blue.
Oh, okay.
You'll love it.
Yeah, that's a little bit cooler in this California sun.
Yep.
When I go to
Yep.
non-coastal California, it'll really be nice.
Yes. So I'll send that to you. Send me your shipping address and your size, and I'll get one out to you. And then, yeah, and shout out to everybody else who joined us today. Appreciate everybody, all of the input and questions. And we'll see you guys again real real soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it. See you guys.